The altcoin markets have bounced, and that's why it's time to reflect, evaluate, and rebalance my altcoin portfolio. In this video, we are going to make changes to the altcoin portfolio, and they might be really big, so let's get started. The first thing we need to realize when we are looking at the markets is the fact that there is some momentum taking place in the altcoin markets and also in the Bitcoin markets, and that means that there is hope for some and there is confirmation for others. And that brings me to the entire topic of why crypto has been correcting, but there hasn't been any news related to the actual move of Bitcoin, so perhaps the news will come at a later point. Earlier in this week, the first big move started to happen, and that's why we need to look at something else than crypto. We need to look at gold, and gold is basically reflecting the uncertainty in the crypto markets and in the markets in general. And we saw that gold basically continued to show its rally on Monday. It basically hit $3,500 per ounce, and then it started to return. It makes a lot of vertical price action at this point, which is comparable to what we as crypto degens have seen in 2017 and 2021, and now we're seeing it on the gold markets. It's a pretty extreme move as the RSI levels on the monthly and the weekly have been hitting levels not seen since 1980. And even the current move of gold is that it's up more than the S&P since the bottom in October 2022. And for this year, it's up more than 30%. You should realize gold is usually moving between 7 to 10%. So being up 30% in the first 3.5 months is insane. That's a very wild move. And it's actually cracking the system because it's not what you want to see. So if we combine that with the markets for crypto, we can basically say that the chart of ETH versus Bitcoin is the inverse of gold. And the prime indicator for strength on risk on assets is ETH. As you can see with the chart, the chart tells a very simple mantra. Gold up is crypto down. And down a lot. In the past quarter, we have been seeing a period where crypto markets have been falling substantially. And of course, there is an actual reason why ETH has been weak as it is, primarily due to technological advancements that are just taking time to get into the system, to provide more revenue, to get more partners on board. That just takes time. That's one part. But in the past quarter, basically everything in crypto has fallen. ETH has fallen, Solana has fallen, and if you go on the risk curve, they have fallen more. So I think that the last quarter wasn't based on crypto, it was based on macroeconomics. And in that period, we saw gold accelerate. And not only that chart has proven that crypto didn't move at all, yet it's also the Chinese renminbi versus the dollar, which I keep on coming back to. If the dollar is weaker and the Chinese currency goes up, that usually means that there is a risk on appetite and that liquidity is going to flow towards crypto in general. We have not seen that as of yet, but we start to see the first signals where gold comes down and crypto starts to go up. And we also have the indication, and that's provided by Raoul Pal and his team, that there is a correlation between liquidity and Bitcoin. And so far, it's following the trend. And I've seen some wild expectations that if liquidity is going to expand in the coming period, we might be seeing Bitcoin trading at 150 to 170K in July of this year. So that also says selling may come back in September. That mantra usually works, but not when Trump is in the office doing the tariff stuff. I think we have seen the correction already, and I think we are in for a big expansion in terms of QE and a big expansion in terms of risk on appetite. So the liquidity part works for Bitcoin. The gold and Chinese currency part works for the rest that's risk on. And that's why you need to focus on those first and then decide what you want to do with your portfolio. And then it becomes interesting that crypto intrinsic events or hype works for certain verticals. And that is influencing my portfolio. And that brings me towards the fact that I need to rebalance my portfolio, which we'll discuss in the next part. Now, there are macroeconomic factors deciding whether Bitcoin moves and whether the altcoins move. And I think these two are different from each other, as I just explained. And then if you move into crypto, there are crypto intrinsic events moving certain verticals, or you could also say it's called narratives or hype. And recently we saw the first indication of a particular hype starting to fire up, which is the fact that Barry Silbert joined Raoul Pal, first podcast in 5 years, I believe, and he started talking about one of our portfolio projects, or at least my personal portfolio project, which is BitTensor or Tau. And from that point, Tau started to move up, just like Sui started to move up back in the day, last year somewhere, when Raoul Pal has joined Stephen Bartlett's podcast and started explaining Sui. It basically made that second move. So Tau starts to move up, and it creates a new hype where other AI coins are following through. And that's how some narrative starts to wake up. And because of that, as you can see in my portfolio, there is a big allocation currently into Tau, which is good and it's bad. So there are two ways of rebalancing or taking profits or whatever you want. First, it's price-based take profits. That's what we discussed. Like if we go back to what certain highs, that's where we start taking profits. The second thing, and that's what we need to do on a monthly basis, is rebalancing when one coin starts to move more than the other one, and then it's very likely that it will follow through. So then we compound the profits through rebalancing it back into those assets. That's the second way. And that's the third one, which is coming at the later point, which is the macroeconomic part. So at some point, you might have risk on assets like we have, and it starts to do well. And then we need to rebalance it into stables or in Pax Gold or in ETH based on the macroeconomic factors. And that's what we're going to do at a later point. But first, as you can see, again, I invested 110 grand into this hypothetical portfolio. Again, I've got my same portfolio with the same valuations, but a different amount, of course. With the current valuations, Optimism is 6.8k, Tau is 10.5, Celestia is 6.5, Psi is 7.2, and then there are 5 smaller coins, which is Omni, that's 2.6, Rocket Pool 3.6, Renzo 2.4, Aevo 2.6, and Wormhole 3.8, totaling 46k. Still down 60%. But you can see in the price action that Tau has been breaking through this crucial resistance zone and started to move some serious strength here. But it's likely to get into some sort of consolidation as it sees its first run. And that is also what we see on the Bitcoin pair, where against the level that we have been buying the asset, it's not down that much at this point. But we have been breaking through this resistance point, and there is a very likely case that we have some consolidation or some pullback, and then the next coins start to go up. And if you look at the current other coins that are in my portfolio, for instance, Optimism, it's down a lot, but it provides a bullish divergence here against Bitcoin. And that means that it's very likely rotating towards the movements that we've seen with Tau. So Tau did make its first move. We made a return back, not a profit, but a return back, which means that we can allocate a part of those funds into something that is likely going to follow through, because Tau moves from this weekend and Ethereum started to move at a later point. And when Ethereum moves, everything within the Ether ecosystem starts to move better. So I think that Optimism is going to follow through. And that's also what you see on the USDT chart. If we compare the Tau chart with Optimism, then the breakout above 90 cents is the level that Tau broke through. So that's why there's still a lot of upside to be made on assets like Optimism. And similarly, this can be said about Psi, which is currently attacking the critical resistance zone at 21 cents. If that breaks, we are likely following the path of Tau, and we are going to get towards 30 cents, which then might be a level where we are going to reverse or take profits or rebalance the portfolio. But then coming back down to the portfolio as it is right now, you can see that the allocation towards Tau is a little bit too much compared to the other ones. And therefore, we need to rebalance, compound the profits, making sure that we get back to break even in a faster way. And that's why I decided to allocate $1,000 to Optimism, $1,000 to TIA, and $500 to Psy. So then Optimism is 7.8, Tao is 8 grand, still the biggest. Psy is 7.6 and Celestia is also 7.6. And that will be done on the levels that we see on the screen at this point. Similarly, the same can be done for the smaller coins that have a different allocation as well. As you can see, Rocket Pool and Wormhole are slightly bigger than the other ones. So that's why I decided to rotate some of the funds in Rocket Pool and Wormhole to Renzo and Omni, as they have fallen more, they are more heavily on the risk curve, and I want to compound my returns to making sure that I'll be back earlier with those assets, making sure that I'm going to make a profit and continue to build. So that's the current strategy and the rebalancing that we're doing with this portfolio. And of course, we're going to update this in the coming period, and it's not the end of the strategy. There are two crucial parts in the strategy. As I said, price-based take profits, and then secondly, rebalancing. And the third part is going to be in play when the markets really start to change. So when the Chinese renminbi goes up, gold corrects more, ETH finally starts to do its move, then the portfolio is going to be bigger, and you need to take into account the risk that you want to have, but also macroeconomic factors that are going to be more important, where you need to have some other assets in the portfolio and not only risk on altcoins. The conclusions that I've made is that basically the charts tell you everything that you need to know. News isn't. So if you use all the indicators to analyze the charts, it's maybe good for day trading, but it's not going to help you on investing. It's more important to understand the right charts and to see what dynamics are working on geopolitical and macroeconomic factors and build your strategy from that point. And I think that I start to feel that I'm on the right track. I start to understand that I'm getting back into understanding all those implications on the charts and what is happening on macroeconomic perspective. That I feel comfortable with this strategy. I'm happy to have these altcoins, and I'm happy that the markets are going to return or rotating already. So make sure to subscribe to this channel if you have any altcoin portfolio like this, and we're going to have fun in the coming 2 years. I'll see you again. During these markets, I'm always looking for opportunities to build my portfolio, and OKX is bringing you an opportunity. They are the first fully licensed exchange in Europe with the lowest fees. And to help you a little bit with your portfolio and to celebrate this milestone, they are giving away up to 50 euros in Bitcoin if you sign up today on the exchange. Signing up can be done within 5 minutes, and if you deposit 100 euros worth of crypto, you'll receive the first 20 euros in Bitcoin. Start rebuilding your portfolio today. Go to the link in the description or scan the QR code and enjoy up to 50 euro in Bitcoin.